E Squared by Pam Grout. If you've seen my earlier videos, the Oculatum, then you've seen part of my commentary already about E Squared. It's a book that I picked up several years ago based on the recommendations of two other people who had read it and found it to be very much of benefit to them. I also previously mentioned that I've tried the experiments in this book, and on the cover it says, 9 do-it-yourself energy experiments that prove your thoughts create your reality. If you've seen my earlier video, you know that I've given this book a try twice before, and I really didn't find it proved anything. In fact, had this been my introduction to creating our own reality and the universe responding, I really would not have been convinced. Lucky for me, my introduction was the Celestine Prophecy. There were a number of interesting events that occurred the year that I read the Celestine Prophecy. So for me, it made quite a difference in terms of understanding a variety of different things, becoming more aware of the synchronicity and events in our lives in terms of information coming when we're most likely to be open to receive and understand it so that it's of benefit to us, meeting the people that we're meant to meet when we need to meet them, and sharing thoughts and information. So for me, the Celestine Prophecy was definitely a very helpful read. And I've enjoyed working through those exercises in the past, and that's something that I'm going to be doing again this year, starting with insight number 1. But first of all, I decided to give E Squared a third try. And when I'm doing exercises of this type, although I will highlight and make notes and dog-ear pages as I'm going through, I prefer to write the different information out in a journal because I like to be able to go back and make note of when I was doing the exercise and connect it in with other work that I'm doing. So because I've also gotten back to working through the Celtic trees, I've decided to use this particular journal both for that and making notes on the trees monthly and noticing how E Squared works out. This time I started the experiments on January the 4th. And as I said, there's 9 different experiments. Most of them take 48 hours to complete. I did experiment number 1 twice, and I have to say, there wasn't a big aha moment, but there were a couple of things that may coordinate in with what that experiment was. For the second one, it split into making a request to see different things. And you pick one for the first 24 hours, which I did, and I saw exactly 0 items. For the other 24 hours in the book, she suggests asking to see butterflies. Now, because it is currently winter here in Ontario, and I have butterflies throughout my house on different boxes and books and other things, I decided that was a bit of a cheat. So instead of asking to see butterflies, I decided to ask about seeing crows. And in my area, it's typical to maybe see 1 or 2 on any given day, as they are common. However, on this particular day and during this particular 24-hour period, I happened to be sitting outside, and within an hour, I saw 11 crows, which is highly unusual. I went out the next day at the same time because I like to test things. I don't just take it as, oh, has to be fact. So I went out the next day at the same time, sat out for the same amount of period, and there were absolutely no crows. I also went out a second time later in the day, again, just to see and test things. And again, there were absolutely no crows the next day. not as I was looking out the windows from my house or whether I was sitting outside. So I have to say, in that case, that was an aha moment. The third experiment I skipped. It's using dowsing rods and related to your emotions. And I've skipped it because for decades I have studied energy healing modalities, both in terms of energy work, Reiki, integrated energy therapy. So I'm already well aware that our thoughts and our emotions definitely have an impact on the energy, not just within our body and our personal health, but the space that we're in, the people that we connect with. In other words, I didn't need confirmation about how energy affects us and other people and the locations that we're in. So today I've gone on to experiment number 4. And in this case, you asked for something specific to manifest within the next 48 hours. So I won't have the answer about that one until January the 14th, just before noon. After that, there are 5 more experiments. So I'm curious to see how this goes, and I'll do an update video in early February after I've completed the different experiments. As far as the book itself, and yes, I have my notes, this book was published in 2013. Pam Grout's writing style is very clear, concise, and not woo-woo, which I appreciate. Her writing, however, is not for everyone, and she is very clear in her opinions about religion. So I just put that out there as an FYI. She claims her exercises are proof of what she calls a field of potentiality. Other people call that the law of attraction, and there are a number of different terms for it. As I mentioned, when I started doing the experiments, I really wasn't convinced that it was showing me proof of anything. And I actually found that quite disappointing because, as I said, it was recommended by 2 other people. On the other hand, I had already been reading a number of other authors at that point, like James Redfield, The Celestine Prophecy, The Celestine Vision. I'd read Steering by Starlight by Martha Beck, which I found very helpful. I'd also read The Way of the Peaceful Warrior and The Life You Were Born to Live by Dan Millman, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and a number of other authors. So I already knew about how our thoughts and our perceptions create the reality and the experiences that we have. Because what we're looking at, so for example, if we focus on blessings and gratitude, or we see obstacles and challenges not as something to give up or we're on the wrong path, but understanding that there are lessons that we get in life. And Reiki teaches that events that happen are for our highest good and our highest healing. In other words, there may be something that we very much want, and we put all our time and our energy and our desire into it because we believe that this is what we want and what we're meant to be doing. And even with all of that, things don't work out. And that can be very crushing, and it can certainly damage our self-confidence and get us to question things. On the other hand, if we look at it in terms of what did we learn from that experience, and sometimes what we'll find, especially as time moves on and we take a look at the situations and different events, what we'll realize is as much as we may have wanted all of that, it wasn't for our highest good. And sometimes we even realized that we were super lucky that it didn't work out. What I'm saying is take a look at a situation from a variety of different angles. Don't look at it as you're failing or you're not meant to succeed. Take a look at what were the benefits, what were the lessons, what was the personal growth that you had from all of that. And just switching that perspective will help you find a different way of looking at things, as well as realizing where you need to fine tune things. It keeps your confidence and self esteem in a good place, which is certainly crucial to moving forward. Throughout the book, she makes reference to A Course in Miracles, which I tried to read once a number of years ago, and personally, it just didn't resonate with me. It isn't that I had an issue or questioning the work, it just didn't click. When I read the Celestine Prophecy, because I enjoy parables, it made sense for me. And as I say, it was an interesting year after reading that and a number of different events. When I read Steering by Starlight, it's not that I 100% agree with everything in the book, but it was something that I just felt made sense for me. When I tried A Course in Miracles, which I'm aware is very popular with a number of people, so it obviously resonates and makes sense for them. I am mentioning that because it is important to find work that makes sense for you. And it's also why I recommend, whenever possible, check a book out from your public library first to see if it's something that makes sense and resonates with you. Books, particularly now, are a huge investment. So rather than spending that $20 to $50, depending on the book that you're buying or where you're finding it, because as I said, in this case with E Squared, I had two people highly recommend it to me. And yet, when I gave the book a try, it didn't have the same impact. The book commentaries that I share are based on my life experience, my own opinions, and my own impressions of the books. So I encourage people to share in the comments down below if they've read the book and what are their thoughts about it. Everyone has a different viewpoint and different expectations when they come across books. So I'm always interested in hearing what is someone else's experience with a book. And when I get to doing a review on the Mayfair Witches, I'll definitely talk a bit more about that. Because thanks to Goodread and a member who shared their thoughts on that particular series, it gave me a different perspective because I found it a very difficult read, but having read Derek's comments, it helped put things in perspective. So later in the year, I'll be doing my summary on that particular trilogy. I'll do my update on E Squared in early February because it takes 21 days to complete all 9 exercises. And sometimes life happens when you make plans. So to make sure that I have enough time to do the activities and check out the results in the summary, I'll upload that in February. If you've read Pam Grout's book or tried the experiments, I'd be very much interested in knowing what was your experience with this particular book and her writing style. Until next time.